Now, the rest of the program, we're going to talk about things that are in motion, comprehensive initiatives that have been adopted, that have been incubated and launched, and now are at a part in their evolution that they're able to present a vision. And for that reason, Dr. Joe Chillo of Thomas More University will introduce the EducateNKY team and talk a little bit about it before turning it over to Tim Hanner and team. Joe has added so much vibrancy and energy to our community since coming to Thomas More. We're lucky to have him here as a 1NKY board member and a community leader. Joe?
Thank you, Karen, for that kind introduction. It's hard to believe that I arrived here in Northern Kentucky in 2019, and the last 4.5 years have gone by so fast. But it's a community that's built on lots of hopes, dreams, and aspirations, and certainly the work that we're doing, and I hope this is giving you a glimpse of the work that we're all doing to make Northern Kentucky a stronger home for our communities. Horace Mann once stated that education is the great equalizer of conditions. While he stated this in 1848, we know today that the pursuit of world-class standards in education is an enormous but essential task for all communities, including Northern Kentucky. This is our time in history to ensure that a world-class education is provided right here for our children today and well into the 21st century. We know the challenges confronting our schools, our teachers, administrators, parents, and children. Since its origin in 2017, this has been a key focus area for the 1NKY Alliance. This group of business leaders knew that there was an opportunity for transformation and innovation in our education system. We all realize that education is an important socioeconomic factor that drives innovation, markets, and the quality of life for an entire community. We also must face the reality that our educational outcomes must improve. Through the tremendous leadership of Greg Fisher, 1NKY board member, who guided serious deliberations on this topic for more than a year with the 1NKY board, with educators, business leaders, and community leaders, we incubated and launched EducateNKY in March of 2023. Greg, thank you for your leadership and hard work. And behind Greg, there were many others who helped lead this work. And I also want to thank Vice Chair Jim Vertuba for doing this work. This group has expanded, and Tim Hanner will share more of this aspect shortly. This group met tirelessly multiple times per week. There may have been a bourbon or two involved since January to start standing this strategy up and organize this effort. An advisory council was developed. A consultant to conduct a landscape assessment identified and then hired our inaugural president and CEO. By July of this year, Tim Hanner, former Kenton County superintendent and education entrepreneur, came on board to begin the comprehensive, long-term work that we believe can bring systemic change to education in Northern Kentucky. We are thrilled to have his energy, insight, and optimism dedicated to this work in hand. In addition to his reputation for collaboration, success, and yes, for getting things done, it's amazing what he has done in such a short period of time of coming on board. He understands the work of partnerships and bringing together our constituencies to get this work done in a timely fashion to improve education across the Commonwealth and Northern Kentucky. Please help me welcome Tim to present this exciting venture and vision for EducateNKY.
Thank you, President Chillo. As we heard today, what an exciting time to live and work in Northern Kentucky. EducateNKY as a formal entity for our Northern Kentucky region, as Joe just mentioned, officially launched in March of this year. And again, although it's new, and when I found out about this and started talking to people like Greg Fisher and Jim Vitruba and Karen Finan, I got very excited, but I also realized there was a lot of work that happened all the way up until I started on July 1st. There's a focus of the work in our phase 1 that was announced in March, and we're looking to expand the opportunities for youth and their families with a focus on the communities with the greatest concentrated socioeconomic needs. As you can see behind me here, our mission, and this was just finalized at our board meeting, we're a startup, July 1st, and everything being built from the ground up. Through the work and efforts, Lynn Schauber chaired that for us and working with Jay Becker and his team at BLDG. We're really excited about our mission, and that is improving outcomes for all children and their families through the exploration and adoption of innovative approaches to pre-K through 12th grade education in the Northern Kentucky region, with a vision of a Northern Kentucky education ecosystem that ignites every eager, vibrant mind. We also, we're grounded in our values of truth, authenticity, transparency, bravery, and optimism. There's no challenge too big or complex because what's at stake here is too important. And that is doing what's best for our children and their families here in the Northern Kentucky region with a focus on Boone, Kenton, and Campbell County. Behind me here, you will see this is the original governance board. These are people who worked hard to create the organization. Many of these talented and dedicated individuals are here today, and they are to be commended for their thoughtful, systemic approach that they took to launching this endeavor. The board in July chose to expand the board. And this makes us a well-rounded mix of leaders from nonprofit and for-profit entities and community activists. This is a very open, action-oriented board seeking to learn the needs and the areas for opportunity in Boone, Kenton, and Campbell counties. We also have a special advisor to the board. Some of you know the name Gene Wilhoit. Gene was the former commissioner of education for the state of Kentucky and currently serves as the executive director for the Center of Innovation and Education. That's a nationwide group. We also have, as Joe mentioned, an advisory council, and many again are in attendance today. This is a wide-ranging group of Northern Kentucky leaders from public and private school superintendents and board members to university presidents and deans to area business leaders and entrepreneurs to nonprofit CEOs and more. These leaders are also parents and grandparents and community members. Their insights and experiences and backgrounds are critical in helping to advise our governing board as we move ahead. So the road so far, since July 1st, we've been in many, many meetings, as many as possible to listen and learn, seeking to understand while carefully sharing our intent and our focus. And this is really important to what you're going to be hearing today. After 140 meetings plus so far, since this has been written, it's about up to 165. This is what we know. This is what we're seeing, hearing, and understanding. The Northern Kentucky region, perhaps now more than ever, is determined to take actions that will result in what is best for our youth and our families. I've yet to meet with a person who doesn't agree this is a critical issue and we all want to improve and engage and work together to do better. It's encouraging, it's powerful, and there are many opportunities when we all work together. Our next steps, as a result of the landscape assessment, which you're going to hear more about in just a second, EducateNKY will work with our many regional partners to address the issues really in three succinct ways. We're going to help incubate new ideas that are working maybe elsewhere that we bring to the region. We're going to accelerate existing impactful initiatives and programs by helping groups in the area that are already doing wonderful work by helping them go to scale or refine or bringing a business acumen to the work. And we're also going to serve as an activator, meaning that we're going to help work to change policies at the local, state, and federal level. What we will not be doing are competing to run programs with other nonprofits or other entities out there because, again, we have people working hard and doing fine work. In my opinion, one of the most important decisions the EducateNKY Governing Board made very early on was to seek and hire an experienced outside consultant to examine the landscape of Boone, Kenton, and Campbell counties from a holistic approach. Shai Calvo has truly hit the ground running since he began August 1st. We've been impressed by his methods, his approaches, and his insights. We had a powerful board meeting yesterday where Shai was with us, and on the way out, people were kind of grabbing each other and saying, this is exciting work. Shai began his career as a researcher and policy expert with the National Conference of State Legislators. He has extensive experience in local government, serving 11 years as an elected mayor in Maryland. Working for multiple education-oriented nonprofits, he's done meaningful work in more than a dozen cities across the country, including significant efforts across the river in Cincinnati. Shai now runs a consulting practice focused on strategic planning and helping nonprofit organizations elevate their impact. After Shai goes over some data and shares with you, we're going to have a table activity where we really want to solicit your feedback and input on some early findings. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Shai Calvo, who will take you through the landscape assessment process and share some emerging trends. Shai?
Thank you, Tim. It's a pleasure to be with you today. As Tim mentioned, let me get the clicker here. Is it this way?
Green.
Green.
Big green. Big green.
Big green?
There you go.
Nice. Okay, we're starting. As Tim mentioned, C-Squared Strategies is partnering with EducateNKY to perform a landscape assessment to capture, frame, and evaluate Northern Kentucky's educational ecosystem. The landscape assessment takes a comprehensive look at the various components of the educational system. This includes early learning and care, K-12 schools, post-secondary options, nonprofit partnerships, and various wraparound supports. Over the last 3 months, we have been digging into reams of data and continue to unearth more. The process is tracing the legal contours, financial structures, and complex intersections that shape how education systems operate. Most importantly, the assessment involves engaging with a wide array of stakeholders to consider and incorporate their thoughts, reflections, and perspectives. The end result of this effort will be an honest and fact-based assessment. It will include clear and direct findings, as well as recommendations for potential strategies and actions. The goal is to complete the landscape assessment by year's end and then use it in the development of a multi-year strategic plan to fund innovative educational approaches that will propel positive system change and improve academic outcomes for all children. We're excited to be with you today, yes, to share about our work, but also, and even more, to benefit from your collective insights in 2 emerging priority areas. To help activate your thinking, let me start by benchmarking where Kentucky stands nationally and then framing each of the 2 issues for you. At the moment, according to the National Assessment of Educational Progress, or NAEP, Kentucky schools perform about average in elementary school and below average in middle school. What's more interesting to me, however, is the long-term trends. Following Kentucky's Education Reform Act in 1990 and a sustained state investment in education, Kentucky outpaced the nation for over 2 decades and actually overtook the national averages in both 4th and 8th grade performance. It peaked between 2011 and 2015 before beginning a steep decline in recent years. Regionally, in comparing Northern Kentucky to the state, the story is mixed. The first priority that I want to highlight is early learning and care. The region well understands the vital link between kindergarten readiness and 3rd grade reading proficiency. Efforts across all 3 counties have gone at this challenge for years. Unfortunately, despite these efforts, and certainly exacerbated by the pandemic, kindergarten readiness rates today, like academic performance, stand below where they were a decade ago. About half of all school children continue to enter school behind where they need to be. What's especially compelling when you unpack the data is that there seems to be a clear through line between the domain areas where new kindergartners come in behind, especially cognition, well-being, and self-help, and the areas that employers cite as meaningful gaps in workers' essential skills related to work ethic, communication, critical thinking, and problem solving. We are digging into these areas more, but what's clear already is that the region's educational and workforce challenges start early and run deep. The second priority issue relates to a significant drop in academic performance in middle school. This graph, which uses 22 data, 23 data actually comes out next week, shows that Northern Kentucky public school children perform above average in elementary school. This is the good news. This is broadly true with many schools across the economic spectrum, outperforming the demographic expectations, that red line. Outperforming the demographic, but sadly, those demographic expectations in America are the most accurate predictor of school achievement. However, something happens in middle school. By the 8th grade, student proficiency is nearly 10 points lower, and the region as a whole goes from above the state average to below the state average. This drop occurs at schools and districts across the economic spectrum, and schools generally cling more tightly to the demographic trend line. The data suggests a need for an infusion of energy and new approaches that excite and activate learners and their families at the secondary level that retain, if not elevate, academic performance during the critical transition from elementary to middle school. I want to be clear that in both of these important areas, there are no simple answers, there are no silver bullets. The important answer, rather, is how do you put in place forces and dynamics that will propel and drive systemic attention, collaboration, and innovation in these areas where success has the great potential for meaningful, positive outcome. With that, I'm going to send it back to Tim.
Thanks, Joey. We'd now like to get some input and feedback from each of you. We're going to have a table activity. You should have white paper on your table. If you've used it for notes, that's okay. Nancy Costello, my colleague, you can raise your hands in just a second and she'll bring you a piece of white paper. We're looking for systemic ideas to address, we're going to have other emerging trends, but we're looking for, again, tables to share with each other, and then you can leave your feedback on the table. A systemic meaning systemic required efforts to change an aspect of a system that's failing to fix a problem, that the whole system maybe needs to be transformed. And that doesn't mean school systems. It means putting systems together. We've seen this here in Northern Kentucky. We've heard it earlier today, what happens when people work together. An example from education is dual credit. I remember when I was superintendent, we were fighting hard to get dual credit opportunities, and there really wasn't a system in place to make that happen. We were having individual conversations. But over time, there were pilot programs that turned into systems working with NKU, Thomas More University, Gateway Technical and Community College. We went from seeing a need to starting pilot programs, and again, greatly expanding where we are today, and our region is to be commended for that. We're one of the leaders in the state in that area. We have also, again, heard other examples of systemic approach and systems versus programs. That's not saying programs are coming up, programs are a bad idea. We have phenomenal programs in Northern Kentucky, but sometimes they're siloed. How do we link together and link programs together? You often hear, if you were given a blank page, what would you do if? Well, you're given a blank page today. And we're asking each group to discuss and address one of the two following questions. The first question, what would it take? And we have had Success by Six, My Pre-K, Preschool Promise Across the River. There have been wonderful attempts, but we're still seeing students come to kindergarten not ready to learn. That's not indicting, that's not pointing fingers, but how can we do a better job of pulling, working with families to ensure that kids come to school ready to learn? What would it take to ensure all Northern Kentucky students enter kindergarten ready to learn? That's one of our questions we'd like feedback on. And the second one, to Shai's point, these are two of several emerging trends. We picked these two today because these are ones we're hearing often and seeing in the data. The second, how do we infuse excitement, innovation, new approaches that will excite learners and their families at the secondary level? That's not saying we don't have that, because we do. We were just at the Ignite Center yesterday. A lot of excitement and a lot of learning going on. So again, the ask is to pick one or both of these emerging trends and brainstorm and record. Brainstorm meaning if someone says something, don't judge good or bad, put it down on paper. Record the feedback on systemic approaches to address the needs, again, rather than just listing programs. Again, how we can ensure that systems across cities, counties, school districts, private schools take on these issues with data and metrics for continued growth and improvement. These are the two questions. If you will, we're going to let you go ahead and talk at your table. We're going to give you about 10 minutes, and then we're going to ask a couple tables if they'd like to share out. Thank you. At this time, what I would like to do is everybody's, there we go, thank you. All right. So I realize this is a topic that people have a lot of opinions on. Just ask Jay Brewer or Alvin Garrison in the back. Everybody has an opinion on education. And it's because we all went to schools, we all have kids in schools or had kids in schools and grandkids. So this is something that touches every one of us. And it can be an emotional issue. So we really value this input. And again, this is something you could have continued to talk about, we know, for another hour. At this time, I want to ask, is there any table that has something that came up that they would like to share out very quickly? Back here.
Hello, my name is Eileen. I don't even live in Northern Kentucky, but I have been trying to move here for several years. Going back even further, we looked at the need for more childcare, quality childcare, the staffing shortages in childcare, the credentialing needs. The cost of childcare. That's a shrinking middle class budget. You know, people are having fewer kids because it's more expensive to be able to raise a child. But in terms of education, educating first-time parents, also utilizing pediatricians who have programs like Reach Out and Read that introduces literacy as a health, something that would really help with the health and cognitive development of children. There was also a suggestion from Alicia about having more schools in the urban core that are STEM focused. And we also have one about welfare reform, but that might be a little too much to tackle in the remaining time.
Thank you very much. What we're going to ask is everyone just leave the papers in the middle of your table. We'll collect those after we're finished. Our contact information's on the screen. Again, Nancy Costello works with me. Thank you to everyone. And again, feel free to reach out. A lot of those 140 meetings now are people reaching out to us. And we love to come and listen and learn, hear your ideas, and we look forward to sharing the results of the landscape assessment and getting input from all stakeholders. Thank you so much.